Okay, here's the buzz, here's the deal, here's what's happening. In Chapter 5, we learned that if we sell things, we buy them for a certain amount of money and we sell them for more than that. That's called our gross profit or our markup. We also learned about the perpetual versus the periodic inventory system. And now in Chapter 6, we're going to talk about inventory methods and their financial effects. So if I've got a used car lot and I've got only two cars on the lot, a 1967 Pinto and a 2015 Mercedes, I know which one I sold. I know which one to take out of inventory and to move into cost of goods sold. But what if I sell a lot of things that are pretty much the same? Is it really worthwhile to track specifically which one we sold? So we're instead going to be allowed to use a few different assumptions. FIFO, first in, first out. LIFO, last in, first out. And average cost. So let me tell you this simple apocryphal story. I'm going to open up a sporting goods store and I have $36 cash in the bank. And I decide I should sell ping pong paddles. So I call up the ping pong paddle supplier and I say, I would like to buy one ping pong paddle, please. He says, absolutely. I'll ship it to you at my cost. It's $10. So cash goes down by $10. Inventory goes up by $10. And let's say that's on January 1st and my store is going to open on February 1st. And I try to go to sleep on that and I realize, you know what? My customers may want to buy more than one ping pong paddle. I should have two on the shelf. So I call up the supplier. He says, absolutely, I'll sell you another one, but the price has gone up to $12. So on January 15th, I pay $12 and add another paddle to my inventory. It gets to be a few days before opening and I think, you know, I really ought to have 3 paddles for my customers to choose from. So I call him up and he says, absolutely, but now they cost $14. So on January 28th, I buy another ping pong paddle and now I have a zero cash balance and I have in my inventory $36 worth of ping pong paddles that all look pretty much exactly the same. I'm going to sell my ping pong paddles for $20. And GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, and even the IRS says, I don't have to know exactly which of these ping pong paddles I sell. I can use the assumptions. First in, first out, last in, first out, or average cost. The logic is it's just too expensive and not that meaningful to keep track of exactly which one of these ping pong paddles went from aisle 7 to my cash register on February 1st. So let's use the FIFO assumption first. I assume that the first ping pong paddle I bought is the first one I sold. So I take $10 out of inventory and move it into cost of goods sold, which means my sale price is $20, cost of goods sold is $10, so my gross profit is $10. Now instead, let's use the last in first out assumption. The last one I bought was $14. So let's assume that's the first one I sold. So $14 comes out of inventory, goes into cost of goods sold, and my gross profit is only $6. And finally, let's use the average cost method. 10 plus 12 plus 14 is 36. 36 divided by 3 is 12. So the average cost to my paddles was $12. I take $12 out of inventory and move it into cost of goods sold. So my gross profit is $8. So if I use the LIFO method in an era of rising prices, the last one is the most expensive one. And so that means I book the least amount of gross profit, which means that I pay less taxes. So I always ask students to remember that LIFO means less taxes. And then the really interesting part, if there is an interesting part to this, is what's happening to cash. And the answer, the cash balance is the same. I had $36, I spent $36, somebody paid me $20 to buy a paddle, so the balance in my cash account is $20 no matter which of these assumptions I used. The only thing that happens is there's a cash flow effect in the sense that since I have less gross profit, I'm going to pay less taxes come next April 15th. And the complicating nuance is depending on whether we're using the periodic or the perpetual inventory system, we're going to get a different answer for LIFO or average cost. So suppose my store opened on February 1st and I sold only one ping pong paddle. LIFO tells me that this is the paddle got sold. Or I use the average cost, it tells me that the average cost is 12. But suppose that I open my store on January 16th, right in here, and I use the perpetual inventory system. Well, at January 16th, what was the last paddle that I bought? This $12 paddle. If I use the average cost method, what was my average cost? Well, at January 16th, it was $11. 10 plus 12 divided by 2. So the thing to keep in mind is that if you're using the periodic inventory system, it's pretty easy to figure out what the LIFO and the average cost answers are. If you're using the perpetual inventory system, that last unit that you bought changes every time you buy a new unit. Likewise, the average cost changes every time you buy a new unit. Other than that, LIFO, FIFO, and average cost are kind of fun, especially if you like ping pong.